The open sacral is selling stop. Stop. The open sacral makes money by telling the sacral when to quit. Think about my open sacral and its pitch to generators. Think about it. I tell them to quit being slaves in order to become builders. I tell them to quit living their lives the way they've been living it. In other words, I go directly to the way in which their not self operates. And I go directly to the basic problem of the generator, which is quitting. And I take advantage of the fact that they're always ready to quit, and I try to sell them quitting to go into something more productive. Now think about that. Now it doesn't matter whether I'm selling that to open sacrals who don't know dick about when to quit anything, or sacrals, who are in things and know when to quit, but it's the wrong things they're in, so they're ready to quit anyway. It doesn't matter. I sell quitting. Quit being stupid. Quit being not self. Quit being idiots. Quit it now. Quit being mundane. Quit being non-mythology. Quit being all that stuff and become something else. Ah, what a pitch. Isn't that wonderful? What a pitch. So think about it. Please understand that the wisdom you derive out of transcending conditioning, and remember something, you only transcend conditioning when you do not allow your mind to make decisions for you. Your mind only makes decisions based on the not self. Whether you're living your design or not, your mind will always try to make decisions based on the not self. My mind this morning was operating entirely out of my not self. It always does, it always will. So my mind expressing my open emotional system was saying, come on, let's avoid all this. Why bother? Just avoid it. It's okay. It's okay. It's a Zen lesson for them. I'm not always available anymore. There goes my mind, running along on its track. It goes to my open sacral and says, you've had enough, haven't you? You've quit. So quit. Enough is enough is enough. You told them how to do it. Leave them alone now. Let them enjoy Ibiza. It's a nice day. There's my mind, right on my not self. Because that's all it will ever express. It's all it can ever express. Yet the moment that it's not making up my mind, the moment it's not my decision-making source, is the moment that I'm very wise about all those things. I know the game. And because you know the game of your open center, it means you know how to profit from it. You do. Now, there's something to understand about this. This is not about mental manipulation. This is not about taking advantage. What I'm actually teaching you is a mechanical thing that works anyway. And the more correct you are, the more correct it simply works. That's my thing about telling people when they're correct, they'll enter into the correct work. It's really something to understand. And they'll enter into it towards all of those things that we're discussing here because that's their mechanic. Now, for us to be aware of it is an advantage. And the advantage is the signposts. I love signposts. I love to see that the way in which material does come into my life is through the venues of those open centers, and my ability to take the wisdom of those open centers and use it and turn it into a product, a service, whatever the case may be. And it's a constant reminder of how it works. Now, obviously, to other levels, in dealing with looking at the potential of a person, of their direction on the material plane, of many other things, it will be beneficial in the analytical sense to be able to see these things for the other. But I really want you to understand, if you're correct, this will operate correctly. Okay, so we are in the sacral. Let's go through the sacral themes. Let's go through these themes of quitting. Remember, it's themes of when to quit. When to quit is the product. Right? I'm going to start with the 5. particularly in my recent trip to America, where I had a chance to work with generators and manifesting generators, that I had a lot of time not working in translation. I had a lot of time, like here, to be able to go into the aspects of being a generator and really explore it and open it up for generators. I do want you to grasp something essential, that generators make life happen. I mean, they literally make life happen. They literally generate what we call life in every way that you can imagine it, in every way you can imagine it. If you took all the generators off the planet, life would die. Human life would end. It would end. Manifestors, projectors, reflectors, these are, I joke and call them cosmic parasites, but, basically they're here for the ride. Basically they're here to bring the concept of life as opposed to the reality of work, into the mix. But within themselves, they do not generate life. They are not fertile in the sense of building the world that we live in. So generators carry within them a disproportionate responsibility for the nature of the world we live in, which is why I try to wake up generators. Okay, the key to all of that is the fifth gate. The fifth gate is universal in forms of life. And when you're looking at the fifth gate, what you're looking at is the generation of the pattern itself of life. The pattern itself. So what is the pure material pattern that's generated? Don't you love this line? The third line of the fifth gate, compulsiveness. Isn't that incredible? We are compulsively driven on the material plane. It's a compulsion. It's a compulsion. Think about that. Why do you think it drives people crazy? It's a compulsion. The fear engendered by the sense of helplessness, resulting in unnecessary stress and activity. That's the pattern of the material plane. And look at the key, because the key reveals its mysticism. The fear engendered by the sense of helplessness. Oh God, that's all I teach you, is that we are helpless. And look what happens to you when you're helpless. You no longer fit into the material pattern. You don't. And you lose your fear. It's gone. And there goes the stress out the window. And yet at the same time, please understand, you're still in the flow. And this is, after all, the generative force that creates within us the love of humanity as a collective force. When I started this, I said how difficult it was for me, in a sense, to teach this, because this is all about profiting through the not-self. Attracting the not-self. But yet at the same time, that's what I'm a master of. After all, I met all of you as not-self. This is our world. We have to reach the not-self. We are going to function in this way. But please understand the root pattern of materialism. That the only way the material plane can be transformed is when generators with the fifth gate wake up. When they're all helpless without fear. When they're all helpless without fear, the compulsion of the material plane will disappear. Oh, that's a really nice dream. Yeah. Keep your boots on. Whenever we're looking at the sacral center, it's best to look at the sacral center in terms of its streams, its movement. When you look at the sacral and you look at its root direction, that is its format quality. We looked yesterday at the 52nd gate, keeping still mountain. Here we're looking at the 9th gate, taming power, the small. It's one of the things to understand is that the compulsion is fed by details. It's fed by details. As a matter of fact, the more details you have, the more stress you have. I'm so glad there's a Human Design Standards Board. Detail, the more and more detail you have in the logical realm, the more fear that is engendered, because the more possibilities of breakdown in the future are visible. It's just a reality. When you're looking at the ninth gate, you're looking at, the magic of mutation. It's one of my favorite lines. It's the third line of the 9. It's the straw that breaks the camel's back. Ah, Lord, isn't that the way? The straw that breaks the camel's back, the overlooked minor element that always predetermines failure. Always. But when we understand the nature of the third line, we know that failure is not the end of something. Bonds made and broken, bonds made and broken, bonds made and broken. It's one of my favorite characters in capitalism is Zeckendorf. Very strange guy. And he's the guy that gave the land that the United Nations is built on. He was a real estate developer in America in the early part of the 20th century. And he went bankrupt 3 times. He was a millionaire 3 times, went bankrupt 3 times, ended his life as a very wealthy man. And he was asked about failure, and he was asked about what it felt like to fail. And he said, well, never made any difference to me. He said, if I owed $1 million, I felt as rich as when I had $1 million. Didn't make any difference to me. This is the magic of the potential of the third line on the material plane. There is no such thing as failure, but there are going to be mistakes, and the mistakes are going to be in the detail. And that's why the detail naturally engenders fear and compulsion. That's just the way that it works. So it's one of the things to understand about growth, material growth, and how to sell material growth, is that this is all about, you have to focus on the detail. You have to quit overlooking the details. Quit overlooking the details. And this is one of the most important things in running any kind of business, whether it's personal or whatever. If you do not know the details, sooner or later, it's going to catch up with you. And the fact that if you do not have all the details, you are going to end up being much more fearful, much more compulsive in order to stay in the material flow. Cross over to the abstract side and go over to the 29th gate. It was one of the first gates I used to make jokes about. The gate of saying yes. Can I borrow your life? Yes. Can I take your money? Yes. Can I fuck you up? Yes. Can I betray you? Yes. Can I cheat you? Yes. Blah, blah, blah. And it gave, in many ways, a false impression of the 29th gate. But it was good for a few laughs for years. And it is a partial truth of the 29th gate. Blindness of the not self in commitment, particularly blindness in the sacral center in terms of commitment. And yet at the same time, to recognize something about the 29th gate is that it is one thing to be theoretical about the nature of the future of a business and to focus on the details of any enterprise and to make money by convincing people that the way they're doing things has not been correct. Remember, everything about making money is about learning from mistakes. Everything about making money is learning from mistakes. Everything. It's a third line phenomena. You must learn from mistakes. And when you're being theoretical, there are no mistakes. There's just this laid out formula. The real proof is in the cooking, You got to get in there and see whether the theory can operate in practice, and that's what the abstract is all about. The 29th gate is the commitment to the process. And of course, this is very, very important. When to say yes, when to make the commitment, and to make a commitment not based on the future, but to make a commitment based on the past. And based on what the knowledge has been gathered from the past. And you can see that this is exemplified here. Classic third line, evaluation. In this context, properly assessed inaction. Inaction. You see, knowing when to quit. Knowing when to end a product line because it's not going to make money for you. knowing when to terminate certain people, knowing when to quit yourself, knowing all of those things. Because remember, human design's a binary. We often forget that. It's the simplest truth of this knowledge. The gate of making commitment is also the gate of not making commitments. The gate of saying yes is also the gate of saying no. And that you really have to see that one of the most important things is to know when and to what to make a commitment. When you look at the format energy that drives this, we come to the 42nd gate. You know, there's many levels of knowledge in the Rei Vi Ching. The general descriptions of gates are often very profound. The general description of the 42nd gate is the expansion of the resources which maximizes the development of full potential. I mean, the expansion of the resources. And how are all those resources expanded? The third line, trial and error. If there is ever a third line of any gate that speaks in the genetic continuity for what a third line is, this is the place. And remember that the 42nd gate is something very special. It says something very important about the material way. Finish what you start. You know? It's the whole thing about the 42nd gate. And finish what you start is not eternal. Finish what you start is cyclical. Everything is on 7-year cycles. Everything. This is the cellular process. If you quit something in the middle of a 7-year cycle, even though you walk away, you will take the rest of that time with you and you will not be whole in your next process. You will still be carrying baggage. Lots of it. Lots of it. That's why we want to train people so at the end of their 7-year cycle, they're ready to go out and deal with the world correctly through this knowledge. And so it's something very clear to understand about the 42nd gate. It says, if you want to maximize resources, you go through the trial and error process. You go through the cycle. Remember, generators are allowed to quit. They're here to know when enough is enough. But you can only know when enough is enough at the end of a cycle. I used to describe to people that when you look inside of your body, imagine inside of your body is a city. And in that city, people live in certain places. Your children, your parents, you know, they live very close to you in that city. They all have houses. Those houses are never for rent. They're never for sale. They're always there long after your parents are dead, long after your children go out into the world. They still have that place inside of you. But there are other people. There are acquaintances of yours that live in neighborhoods nearby, you know, that rent places, usually cyclic involvement. And then there's people that live in apartment complexes deep in the suburbs. The person at the supermarket that you see every day, the person that you see at the gas station that you pay, you know, and on and on and on. Now I want to tell you something. When somebody steps out of your life, you have an acquaintance, a friend of yours. You have a big fight with a friend of yours. You tell them, this is it, it's over, go to hell, go away. You know, you've known them 2 years. For 5 more years, they're going to live inside of you. 5 more years. If you don't see them in those 5 years, at the end of the full 7-year cycle, their place is for rent, and they're gone. And this is something to understand about the 42nd gate. Is that the whole thing about the generative process is that the generative process generates the 7-year cycle. A single human cell is a 1553. The mutation of the flow. Everything. You know, you really have to see that it's all generated, it's all put out there. We're generated on 7-year cycles. So completion is completing 7-year cycles. And here you can see trial and error. In times of increase, mistakes are natural and part of the process. The energy and assertion to turn mistakes into advantages. The power to accept mistakes as part of growth. This is a holy line. It's the great third line. Any of you got a third line in your profile? Read it once a day. Recognize how magical that is. It's the truth. If you want to maximize your potential, you must go through trial and error. Otherwise, there's no discovery. Otherwise, there's no efficiency. Otherwise, we don't refine. We don't perfect. We don't. 34th gate. Busy, 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 busy. Busy, 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 busy. Look, the 34th gate doesn't want to be in business. We're into integration here. The 34th gate does not want to be in business. The 34th gate wants to kill the weak and eat them. That's all. What do you mean, work? I'm too busy chewing to work. Power is only great when its display or use serves the common good. May all the dictators read that line. Right? Power is only great. It's only great. It's only great when it's used for the common good. And it's one of the things that underlines the nature of the material way. It's one of the things that you see, even though many of us criticize it negatively. The reality is that one of the oddest byproducts of rampant capitalism is rampant philanthropy. Have you ever noticed? Ted Turner, the guy that built CNN, gave $1 billion to the UN for children. And it's like, there's this interesting dichotomy there. Power is only valuable and is only valued and respected when it's used for the common good. All of the great robber barons of American capitalism, whether they be the Carnegies or the Rockefellers, have had institutions running now for over 100 years that have benefited millions and millions of people, serving the common good. And I bring this up only in the context of the 34th gate, because remember, the 34th gate, it doesn't want to do all of that. It just wants to survive. It is about just individual survival. And yet at the same time, the very power to survive, this driving force of busyness, that it can only be valuable if it serves the common good. In other words, herein lies the source of what we call philanthropy, of, truly caring in some way for others through your power. The third line tells it all, machismo. It's the line of machismo, indiscriminate display of power. We have seen that the caste system changed radically with the invention of money. Radically. It's one of the things that is always so crude for me about my American experience, where North American, I'm a Canadian after all, that experience of people asking you how much you make. It's one of the oddest things. You meet somebody for the first time, what do you do? And you go, and they say, well, how much do you make? For me, I'm so private. It's like, what the fuck is it? It's like, get out of my face. I don't want to talk to you. Anyway, you really have to see that is, not all of our societies in the West are that direct, but we do it in other ways. Look at the car that they, it goes on and on and on. Look at the clothes they're wearing, the this and that, the so forth and so on. It's all about money. And the caste system is based on money. As much as there's old English farts hanging out who think it's all crude, the reality is that it's money. Money talks and bullshit walks. Money's got the power. And if you've got a lot of money, you've got more power than somebody who doesn't. It's just the way the not-self works. And so you can see that in integration gives money-making a bad name. It just does. This is the part that everybody says, oh, it's also vicious and dirty. And of course, it's not. It's not. It's just that you're dealing with very, very selfish, survival-oriented energy. It doesn't look like they care about anybody else. You know, it doesn't look like they're going to benefit anybody else. I mean, you know. Anyway. Machismo. Ooh. Let us now go to the third gate and talk about mutation. Oh, how boring life would be if there was nothing new. You know. And you can see that newness is the most attractive thing of all. If you can't sell something new, you know, you're going to have a hard time. That means that everything has to be revitalized. You know, if I was the great cosmic product manager, I would say every 7 years of a product's life, you completely revamp it. Every 7 years. Every 7 years, you make it new and improved. If you don't make it new and improved, it isn't going to get any attention. I knew one thing when I was given this knowledge. I knew that I had a chance because nobody had ever seen it before. I mean, that's the only chance I had. I knew I had a chance because nobody had ever seen it before. It was really new. I mean, that was one of my first lines. Look, this is really new. It's different. It's really different. You know. And this is something to understand about humanity, is that we are an evolutionary mutative species. And that we always are flagged by the new. Hey, there's something new over there. I mean, I've spent 20 years of my life on this island. Anything that's new, they know about it here. Anything that's new. I mean, this is a place that collects newness while it maintains oldness. You know, the latest trend, the latest this, the newest that. And human beings love it. I remember when I was a teenager, you know, waiting for the new dance. And you got to a point where you expected a new dance every day. You know, because every day on the radio, there was some new dance. You know, you could do the banana nana and you could do the hua hua. And everybody was turned on by the new. It's new, you know. I lived in the drug culture all my life. I mean, there were moments where somebody would say, hey, there's something new. And you'd go, yeah? Where? I want to try it. What is it? How does it work? You know, new. We're into the new. Hey, look, if you can sell new, you're great. I mean, this is our business, eh? We're new. We're selling the new. We're not even selling improved yet. You know? We're just selling new. You know, and everybody's out there going, what's new? Have you ever look at any of these standard esoteric magazines? There is so much shit in there. I mean, wall-to-wall crap, eh? All over the place. Most of it is improved. You know, there's 1,800 variations of the same yoga. You know, there's 27,000 variations of astrology. You know, it goes on and on. It's all improved. You get a better looking this, you get a better looking that, you know. I don't want to get too nasty. I'm into the new. So it's one of the things to understand is that new sells. So quit the old and join the new. Okay? I loved that. A couple of years ago, the American military wasn't getting its professional army. And they had this wonderful series of advertising to try to bring people in. Join the new army. Yeah. Shit. What do you mean new? The improved, please, but it's not new. You know, I really didn't like that. I mean, all right, improved is okay. You know, more sophisticated. You know, but new? No, this is not new. If you want to sell new, you really got to have something new. And every time, and this is it. Look at marketing. Look at all the marketing. Every single aspect of marketing you're going to look at is going to try to give you something new. You know, when the Super Bowl in the United States, an athletic event, gets the most advertising every year, billions of dollars spent because you get a vast, vast audience. Everybody's waiting for the new beer commercial. What an insanity. You know, it's like you're waiting for the sequel to Star Wars, you know? I want to see the new Budweiser commercial because I want to see those funny... If you've ever seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. I want to see what they're going to say to each other. You know, it's cute, blah, blah, blah. But it's new. Everything's new. Jesus Christ, you know, I bought a DVD 2 years ago. I can't even use the damn thing. You know? Because the DVDs are new. They got new this. I go to the shop and say to the guy, look, excuse me, I bought this latest technology. It was 6 months old at the time. And I bought some DVDs and they wouldn't run on the machine. And I said to him, why don't they run? He said, well, these DVDs operate on this, whatever. I don't know anyway. I said to him, yeah, but this is a DVD machine, right? Well, I said to him, how much is it going to cost so this DVD machine will play these DVDs? So it was something like 200 euros. So I spend 200 euros, right? Puts a chip in my box. I bring the thing here to Ibiza, right? Now this DVD has already cost me more money than God, you know? And I come here, I go buy a DVD the other day. I put it in the machine. The machine says to me, I don't read this, spend more money. There are new and improved DVD machines. And by the time I go out, and in frustration, I am forced to do this now, I will go buy a new, brand new, improved DVD machine that supposedly carries Q, R, 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 D, R, R, F, Q, and all the rest of the shit that you can play on these things now. New and improved. New and improved. I got a monitor I don't use anymore. It's old. Thing's 3 years old. You know? It's old. It's last century's technology. You know? We're all making money on new, and we are the biggest suckers. Us. I mean, you have to see that. How powerful the pitch is. Quit the old, join the new. Eh? I mean, they're pitching that at the Iraqis today. Eh? You know, join the new. Let's loot together. Anyway. The point of the third line of the three is survival. Is survival. I grew up in a real capitalist environment. I've always understood this world. And when I woke up and I had the human design system and I recognized that this was something that was new, that's only half of the equation. New is automatically attractive. But it's one thing to have an attractive product, it's another thing if it works. If it works. You know, and this is the most incredible thing about the mutative process. You know, you can always get people's interest. We have that with products all the time. You know, there's a rush on a product, PDAs, you know? You get this incredible rush on these products, you know, because they're really new and they're different. And then there's this real drop-off if they don't fulfill their promise of being new and valuable and useful and so forth and so on. So one of the things to recognize about the difficulty at the beginning when you're trying to attract with the new is the survivability. The ability to recognize and distinguish between fertile and sterile in their various manifestations. You know, in reproduction, this is about choosing the right mate. You know, this is about knowing what's new and what's survivable. No sense backing a mutation that won't make it. You know? If you're backing a mutation that's going to make it, you're going to have an extraordinary material experience because the new is attractive. And after all, I can remember when computers were new. when the personal computer was new. I can remember when the laptop was just, a magazine ad before I'd ever seen one in a shop. And that new because it functioned and provided incredible possibilities and service. Look at how it transformed our world overnight. This is new. And this is how the new works. But the new is based on something very basic. If you can't get to the end of the first cycle, if you can't get to new and improved, you're not going to make it. It's just going to die on the vine. And that's the whole thing about mutation. Mutation has to have survivability, and remember, because it's an individual process, we've learned that in the pressure of the individual process, you cannot do it alone. You need those that are going to fight with you. You need those that are going to work with you in that process. I'm on North Node in the second gate, in the first line. And being somebody who has absolutely no activation in the sacral center, that of all the sacral gates, though I am impacted in integration by the 34, of all the sacral gates, the one that I have the deepest connection to is the 14. And the 14th gate has, for me, carries with it the whole image, the whole root in ancient Chinese philosophy of the material way. Even when you read the traditional I Ching, you meet the symbolism of poverty and wealth, the transition of poverty to wealth, the symbol of the wagon, the nature of the wagon, that the wagon can be full, that there can be great abundance within the wagon can be empty, there can be great suffering in the emptiness of the wagon. The 14th gate is the energy to fill the wagon, literally. It is the deepest font of our material vision and direction. It is the source of the Penta's dream. This is something very, very extraordinary in the 14th gate. It says the accumulation, this is the keynote for the whole hexagram, the accumulation and retention of power and wealth through skilled interaction, coupling grace with control. Grace with control. Oh, I do like that. See, the 34th gate is without grace. I know that. I know it so well. There is no demand on the savage to be graceful. None whatsoever. But in the 14th gate, in the ultimate service of the common good, there is extraordinary grace that comes with power. Extraordinary grace. This is the vision of all of us sharing in the bounty of this planet. All of us. And again, not sharing in the bounty of this planet as equals, but sharing in the bounty of this planet as unique individuals who have a right to the resources they deserve. Period. Anyway, in the 14th gate, in the third line, you see the true value that must be brought by anything new. And if it doesn't bring this value, it can never succeed as a mutation. And this value is service. Service. This is the great line of service. The utilization of talent and wealth for the highest good. The utilization of talent and wealth for the highest good. Selfless contribution to society. The key to power lies in selfless contribution to others. See, when you bring something new into the world, remember the romance we've looked at in individuality. When you bring something new into the world, you are not here to bring it in for the direct material benefit. I did not. You bring it out of love. It's a passion. That's the selflessness. It's the passion. You do it for the love of it. And when you dedicate your talent and wealth to something, that it is your love of it, that's when you get your reward. Only then. And I'm speaking of the new. You don't have to love the way you make money collectively. You don't have to love the way you make money tribally. But you must love the way you make money when you're bringing mutation into the world. You must love it for itself. The utilization of talent and wealth for the highest good. And by the way, don't misunderstand that. That's not a moral statement. The highest good that can be achieved by anything new is that it becomes old. You know, that's the highest good. You know, I can change and have my life changed for me in this point because the mutation that started in me after 2 full cycles, that mutation found its place. It took hold. It's only when it took hold, it's only when for some people meeting human design is not new anymore because it's out there somewhere. They've seen an article, a story, a friend, whatever the case may be. It's becoming ordinary. It's becoming normal. It's part of the collective now, truly part of the collective now. It has left its individual birthplace. It's left its tribal bridge that was its first mutation. And now, only in these days that we're here, has it entered into a new cycle of being collective. That's the great triumph of anything new, that it becomes part of Solomon's world, where nothing is new under the sun. This is its maturity. The 27th gate. You know, everything about the 5027 is about responsibility. You know, if nobody's going to be responsible, we're fucked. So responsibility is something that is inherent in this channel. And it is a responsibility ultimately to educate. That the more you educate, that the greater the wealth that you ultimately create. It's one of the things to understand about the development of our Western societies is that from the moment that we institutionalized education as something that was public and general is the moment that we created a new level of potential earning standards. So that we have come to see that we tell our children that without education, whatever that education may be, without training, without whatever it is, that they're not going to be able to have a high potential in terms of their ability to take in resources. So one of the basic things to recognize about dealing with the defense circuit and dealing with this deep tribal support system is that this is all about making money through education. And it's something very important to grasp. Nourishing the capacity to earn. And education in many ways, on-job training, teaching people in school, whatever the case may be, this is an educational function. The enhancement of the quality and substance of all activities through caring. It's a very beautiful hexagram. And when we look at the third line, we see this great line, greed. Oh, I love this line. I love lines that people automatically have a wrong impression about. You know, perversion, corruption, you know, all of these lines, prima donna, all of these lines that people go, oh, 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 you know, I love it, I love it. Yes, yes, you're greedy. Anyway, the obsession. There's an insider joke here. This is the only line of psychology. 27.3. This is the only line about the probing of motivation. Only one. Only one. You see, we have learned something in our time. If you can be really smart, you can gain an advantage over the other. The moment you have more information than they have, you have an advantage over them. The power trip of people who do readings. Eh? I know more than you. I have an advantage. And I got to that advantage because I wanted to know much more than anybody else knows. It's a different kind of greed. It's the greed for knowledge. Remember that people have tried as a cliche to link knowledge and power. You can see there is no linkage. They're very different. They're very different. We are here to be greedy for knowledge and to feed on that greed. You go to a third-rate American university and pay $18,000 a year for a university education that really is of minor value. If you go to an elite university, you can spend a fortune, hundreds of thousands of dollars to educate your children. You know, people make money that way. After all, look at what I charge. You know, I charge you a lot of money. Eh? You want to be greedy for more knowledge than you need? Fuck you. I don't care. You want to pay for it? Phew, go ahead. It's okay with me. Eh? I mean, I feed that greed. I could go on forever telling you things. You know that. You want to know all of it? You want to know everything? You want to know everything that I know? Yeah, sure, you can come along. I'll take you on the whole journey. That's fine. And yes, it will give you certain advantages. There's no question about that, at least within yourself. Okay, third line, greed, the obsession with having more than one needs. Here, the psychological manifestation. It's the only line that mentions psychology. The obsession and dependency on knowing what is hidden. The secret policeman. The power derived in having more than one needs, whether sexually, mentally, or materially. Ah, yes. This is one of the most important things about the tribe and the contribution of the tribe that I love so much, is that it is only the tribe that realizes that being smart is very important. Smart. Remember, the tribe is smart in certain ways. They're smart about making deals. They're smart about how they find support. There is a smartness there. And the tribe nourishes that smartness. You know, tribes really feel successful when their children are educated. You know, when they begin to really flower, when they begin to have all of the advantages. It's all education. So here you have to see that one of the things about educating is that the lure is the greed. It's the greed. I can remember when I was in high school, the guidance counselor came in to give a speech to our high school graduating class, or it was the year before our graduating class. And they came in and they started writing on the blackboard. You know, if you have a grade 10 education, this is your average earning. If you have a grade 11 education, this is your average earning. If you have grade 12 education, this is your average earning. If you have a bachelor's degree, this is your average earning. You know, if you have a master's degree, blah, blah, blah. If you have a technical degree, da, da, da. If you know, blah, 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 blah. And you know, you'd sit there as a kid and, you know, the starting point in that era was like, I don't want to make that little money. I mean, that's terrible, you know. You know. And it's all greed. It's like, yeah, you study for 7 years as a doctor and you can rip people off for the rest of your life even while you kill them. You know? I was like, oh, okay, yeah, greed. You know, the tribe operates out of intimacy. And the support mechanism operates out of intimacy. You know, always keeping in mind that the Sacral Center is about knowing when to quit, you know, knowing what to quit, knowing how to, you know, not make the same mistakes. I can't tell you how many fathers have told their sons, get an education, I didn't. You know, it's like, don't quit, keep on going. This is very important. I was a quitter and it cost me, blah, 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 blah. All that kind of stuff. Again, you have to see that the sales pitch is there underneath all the time. When we're dealing with the 59th gate, when we're dealing with the genetic power of the 59th gate, we know what it does. The gate is the ability to break down barriers to achieve union. It's the breaking down of barriers. And it's one of the things to understand about the nature of the tribe is that you cannot market the tribe without intimacy. You can't. You can't get the tribe to support you unless you are going to physically be involved with them. Very hard for tribal societies, for example, to participate in globalization. It's just not real for them. It's just not. It's not like, knowing that their next door neighbor is growing the tomatoes. The relationships, the ability that the head man or head woman is somebody you get to smell and touch regularly. They're one of yours. They belong to you. They're kin. They're going to serve you. And it's one of the things to see about the way in which mutation works. Understand something about the mutative process. The only thing that is always successful is what's new. You can always do well with what's new. But if doing well with what's new, remember you can do well for 7 years and disappear. If doing well with what's new is going to really have power and mutative potential, then the first thing it has to do is it has to impact the tribe. It has to impact the tribe. Only the tribe lays the foundation for the collective. Only the tribe. So whenever you're dealing with the tribal level, the new has to be introduced personally. Personally. You really have to be there. It's not the, as my daughter describes it, the phone bitch. The automatic answering phone people. Where you call up a business and you get this recording that says, if you want to complain, press 1. If you don't want to complain, press 2. If you don't understand what I'm saying, dial again and see if you can get online. If you want to talk to a human being, you'll have to wait at least a week. The phone bitch. This is the one you want to kill them. And if you're a tribal person, and you've been going to the local tienda to get your cookies every day, it's like, ooh, this is very difficult. So it's one of the things to understand about getting something going. A tribal person, the revolution of the handheld telephone. The tribal person doesn't really know its value until you go to the village. You go to the village and you say, here, this is a portable telephone. You don't have to walk 12 miles to the payphone in that village that doesn't work. You can stand here, right here, and you can talk. See, look, here, and let it... Have you ever seen those scenes? I was watching the introduction of a new kind of computer developed in Silicon Valley in India. Their Silicon Valley. In order to be able to get people to speed up the legal process there, which is very, very slow, to be able to do documents on computer boards, to write on these little, computer plates, and it will be sent and so forth and so on. And there's this guy in this village. This village has one television. It's got a couple of handies. And here's this guy introducing really sophisticated technology, and there's all these village children and their parents, and everybody's looking, and now this is the only way to bring it to them. And you put it in their hands. You put it in their hands and you help them and you show them, and everybody's watching, and mutation at work, and they're all excited and they all want it. But if you do that from out there somewhere, it doesn't work. 59.3 is openness. It's just openness, period. It is the search for the identity. It's the search for security. And the only way that you're going to prove the value of your product is that you're going to prove it through being supported by, quote unquote, testimonials. You know, this is the way it works. And the tribe is always ready to try anything new. Everybody thinks the tribes are locked, but they're not. But you see, somebody from their world has to introduce something new to them, and they'll buy it like that. I mean, when I came to this island, you know, practically no local drove a car. They sell Mercedes here and Maseratis. You've got an island where the national driving experience is 5 years. Be careful. I saw somebody that I know here, and he was saying, "Oh, nice man," and he drove by in a Maserati, and I thought, "Oh God, you bring the new." You know, the moment that you do that, you know, this is something that's so important. So it's one of the things about understanding the nature of maintaining support in any business is contact. So many businesses fail by not providing support, intimacy. Intimacy. You know, now we have many ways of doing that. We have many ways in the modern sense of letting them know that we're thinking about them, you know, that we care about them. But you know, 10 emails does not replace a lunch. And it will never replace a lunch. It can't. It can't. Because in the end, intimacy is the one thing that maintains support. It just does. Now can I get out of the goddamn sacral? Are you going to let me go now? Good. All right, the G Center. We know that the strategy of the undefined G Center. And remember something. Let's be very simple. Products have an identity. All inanimate things do. And services are always represented by identities. And that the G Center is about bringing direction and love. Now, that's a lot of selling. You know? I mean, there's many, many things you can sell. So what I would like to do is that I'd like to sell love first. Let's sell the love of humanity. Isn't that nice? 15th gate. And how do you sell the love of humanity? You sell it through, have you ever looked at the third line? Ego inflation. Oh, come on, that's really funny. How do you sell humanity? You inflate their egos. Oh, you look like $1 million in this makeup, honey. You know? Oh, you smell like a queen, you know? Ego inflation. Oh, you've never looked so good. Can I sell you some insurance? The risk that modesty once recognized will self-destruct. Oh, there's such a great joke in all that. Anybody that knows anything about the stock market knows that stock markets are based on exploding bubbles. I mean, boom and bust is one of the most natural things. It's like being born and dying. I mean, boom and bust is just